Hi, good day to you. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Today we're taking a look at Shirley Jackson's The Story We Used to Tell. It's a short story that's in this 2017 Penguin Classics collection called Dark Tales that we've been doing a deep dive into by Shirley Jackson. I loved the two things that I had previously read by Shirley Jackson. The Lottery, a short story that everybody's read when they're in school as a part of my literature classes. And I would give it a 10 out of 10. And then I also knocked out a novel called The Haunting of Hill House, which is her classic seminal novel. I gave it probably, if I remember correctly, an 8 out of 10. I read it a couple of years ago over spring break while I was away vacationing and in the airport and on the airline. So I knocked it out for this channel because I'd always wanted to read it. It was on my bucket list and it was great too. And so now I was like, oh, I definitely wanted to take another deeper dive into the horror genre. I just finished my Weird West collection, and that was probably about 80% horror stuff that combined with the Western genre, and then the other 20% was fantasy and science fiction. Two science fiction and the rest were fantasies. Which combines those. So I liked getting back to horror. Ever since I was in college and I started to really embrace horror with H.P. Lovecraft and other things in the Cthulhu mythos and reading a lot of older horror things, I've definitely been much more into it and so forth. And again, my channel does 3 different genres of her reviews: fantasy, science fiction, and horror. So knocking out some horror was definitely something I was interested in. And then I picked up this Shirley Jackson collection. She's a classic. She's a seminal horror writer, right? One of the most respected and beloved horror writers in American history, right? So I wanted to do a deeper dive into her and with the short collection. But the first few short stories in this collection weren't actually horror, right? A couple of them were psychologicals in nature, but they weren't psychological horrors, like, The Shining, for example, or something like that. But they were psychological dramas with a lot of things happening in them. This is a horror short story, and I appreciate that. Now, it's only like 7 pages long. I knocked it out a couple of days ago. It was for the first time. It took me about 20 minutes or so. Actually, under 20 minutes, probably more like 16 or 17 minutes for me to knock it out for the first time. It was very quick. It won't take you that long. And it's a horror short story, too. I'm going to be giving it a 7 out of 10. Now, as a reminder, I keep my reviews spoiler-free. But we're back to horror, baby. Yay! Now, I did do some non-horror stuff reviews because, again, when they're a big name and it's very influential in a genre, I will oftentimes do their non-horror or non-fantasy or non-science fiction stuff in order to sort of, kind of tell all the context of who this person actually was, like Robert E. Howard, for example. He has I remember a short story when I was doing a deep dive into his Conan that actually didn't include any fantasy elements in it. It was just a short story. And then I remember when I was doing my reviews and doing every single Solomon Kane short story, also by Robert E. Howard, there was one called Blue Flame of Vengeance that didn't have any fantasy or science fiction or horror elements into it at all. It was just an action story. Yet nevertheless, I went ahead and said, okay, let's do it. Right, it's fine. And then I also did a bunch of his boxing short stories because he was an amateur boxer and he wrote a lot of boxing short stories in the pulps during that time. So, and nobody during the Blue Flame of Vengeance or during the boxing short stories said, why are you reviewing Robert E. Howard? He's one of the most influential people in fantasy of all time. Fantasy is a key part of this channel's reviews. So nobody ever said, so I'm doing that now with Shirley Jackson. And again, Stephen King also did the same thing, right? He wrote novels that aren't in the horror genre, right? So if I did a non-horror Stephen King short story, I don't know that anybody would push, or novel, right? I don't think anybody would push back and say, why are you reviewing something by Stephen King, right? That's not in the horror genre, right? So the same thing shows Shirley Jackson, but this one's back in the horror genre. This is a haunted house. We have 2 main characters, our protagonist and a good friend of her that she calls Y. So the story refers to her as Y, which is an interesting decision, I think, by Shirley Jackson. It's basically the key points, and again, I try to keep these reviews spoiler-free, so I'll only give you the short sort of cut that you would probably see on the back of a novel with the short basic premise of the story. They are at Y's house, and they're trying to get out, and the house isn't letting them. So it's basically an update to the haunted house tale, and that's it. That's the short story in a nutshell. I liked it. It was well written by Shirley Jackson because, again, there's a reason why we like her. She's definitely somebody who's got a good style of writer and some good wordsmithery to her. And I definitely appreciated that too. So I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. I'm back in black, baby. The previous story I didn't like that much. I only gave like a 5+ to it. But now we're back. We're doing some good stuff. And so now we're moving forward. And I hope moving forward that we'll enjoy the next few things and so forth. And we'll get back into it. Alrighty, I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read this short story? If so, what'd you think of it? Did you agree or disagree with my 7 out of 10? Would you like to talk about spoilers in the comments below? So what'd you think of Dark Tales? Have you read it? What'd you think of it? I'd be more than happy to engage you with it further in the comments below, whatever your take is of it. If you enjoyed this video, hey, why not hit that subscribe button? There's be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. Thanks again, and have an amazing day.